The king married the beautiful princess to a white dog. Much to everyone's surprise, they got along very well. In less than a month, the princess was pregnant with 8 litters. They decided to leave the city. However, before half a year had passed, the princess gave birth to 8 half-human, half-dog children in quick succession. People call these creature-like beings fuse, although they have human-like characteristics. But when their beastly nature takes over, they transform into something resembling hyenas. They didn't consume regular food, but fed on human essence, sparing not even the elderly and children. The people in the city were in a state of panic. The royal family was humiliated as a result, and a decision was made to begin hunting down these 8 fuse. A bounty was placed, with promotions and titles for any official who could capture a fuse, and 10,000 gold coins for any commoner, with the hefty rewards offered. Soon 6 fuse were hunted down by individuals. Among the hunters was the green-haired samurai Makawari, who single-handedly killed 2 fuses, with his reward in hand. Makawari was about to revel in luxury. However, he encountered a masked man who attacked him without a word. Swift and agile, the assailants swiftly blinded one of Makawari's eyes. Makawari's comrades rushed to the scene, cornering the masked man in an alley. Suddenly, the assailant transformed, sprouting beastly claws from his right hand, fatally impaling his attackers and devouring his essence. He, too, was a fuse. The masked man knew it was not safe to stay in the area, so he jumped onto the rooftops to leave. Unwilling to let him go, Makawari rallied his men to pursue the masked man. However, during the escape, he accidentally knocked over a girl, and at that moment, Makawari caught up. He immediately ordered his men to swiftly attack. The masked man casually picked up the girl's arquebus from the ground and engaged them in intense combat. These individuals were no match for him, and the masked man easily defeated them all. At this point, only Makawari remained. He was determined to avenge his eye. Putting forth all his strength, he launched an attack, but the masked man effortlessly evaded his moves. Subsequently, the masked man used one end of the arquebus to grip Makawari's neck and threw him into the river. Resolving the crisis, he returned the arquebus to the girl, but just then, another group of people came after him. Seeing this, the masked man gripped the girl and began to flee. Utilizing the power of the wild beast within him, he swiftly escaped with the girl from the scene. As the sunset drew near, they finally eluded the pursuit of the samurai. They learned each other's names through a brief introduction. The masked man's name is Shino, while the girl's name is Hamaji. Hamaji, who had previously lived alone in the mountains, surviving through hunting, had come to Edo at her brother's invitation. Illiterate, she wandered the city with a letter in hand. Shino, upon reading the address on the letter, realized it was nearby. To show his gratitude, he decided to help Hamaji find her brother. Along the way, Hamaji wanted to say that Shino's gray hair looked like dog hair, but she didn't mean to mock him. She thought it was beautiful, and that made Shino think she was a very interesting girl. In their brief time together, they left lasting impressions on each other. But Hamaji didn't know Shino was one of the reasons her brother had called her to this place. Soon, they arrived at their destination. Following Shino's gesture, they reached the address mentioned in Hamaji's brother's letter, where she finally reunited with her long-lost brother, Dusetsu. Tears of joy flowed between the siblings, reuniting after many years. When Hamaji attempted to thank Shino, she found him already vanished. Dusetsu brought Hamaji to the place they were staying. What surprised her was that, in the vast city of Edo, Dusetsu's residence was quite humble. Yet, Hamaji found herself quite fond of it. Through the skylight, she could see a small bridge over running water and the evening glow of cherry blossoms. A single man's home now housed a girl, and the neighbors all came to see the commotion. Everyone was very welcoming to this girl from the mountains, especially the boatmen in the area. She would go around selling food by boat every day. She told Hamaji that unlike the mountains, resources were scarce here, and without money, life would be difficult. However, Dusetsu had other plans. He decided to take Hamaji out the next day, to use her hunting skills to hunt down fuse, so they could claim a hefty reward and live a prosperous life. The next day, Dusetsu disguised Hamaji as a man and began preparing to hunt fuse. On the way, Dusetsu explained to her that while fuses appeared human, they had 3 distinct features, emitting a beastly aura, possessing fangs, and bearing a peony mark on their bodies. Under normal circumstances, fuses couldn't be killed, but decapitation was the only way to truly end them. Dusetsu led Hamaji to the renowned courtesan street, filled with a variety of women. Before they could advance far, an old lady dragged Dusetsu into an alley. The old lady told him there was a stunning beauty today. Upon hearing this, Dusetsu immediately became interested and decided to rest here for a moment. Dusetsu, however, was scared out of his wits. The so-called beauty was none other than the old lady just now. Dusetsu fled for his life in terror, and Hamaji, on her first visit to the city, was already captivated by the scene before her. She didn't even know Dusetsu was missing. Soon enough, she was also accosted by the women, who had no idea she was disguised as a man. They all wanted her to spend some money and rest here for a while. Fortunately, Shino arrived in the nick of time, rescuing her from the situation. Observing Hamaji's lack of femininity, Shino took her to a clothing store for a transformation. Surrounded by a dazzling array of women's accessories, Hamaji felt a mix of insecurity and anticipation. Shino selected the most magnificent kimono in the store for her, and the shop owner delicately adorned her. After dressing up, Hamaji became a completely different person. Shino couldn't help but feel a flutter of emotion at the sight of her new look. As the evening approached, Shino decided to accompany Hamaji back home. In the glow of the sunlight, Shino's shadow on the wall transformed into the likeness of a dog. Because he sensed the heat of essence within Hamaji, Shino almost lost control of himself, driven by his primal instincts. But Hamaji's timely words interrupted his animalistic urges. Shino asked if there was someone important in her heart, perhaps already developing feelings for this innocent girl. He escorted Hamaji to the city gate for their farewell. Amid their few encounters, an ambiguous affection had already sprung up between them, unaffected by the people around them who were like scarecrows. At this moment, Dusetsu also found Hamaji, and informed her that the street was about to hold a procession for the Oiran. Itejiru, the first Oiran of the street. The men in the city crowded the streets to catch a glimpse of her beauty. Dusetsu quickly joined the throng, squeezing through the crowd. However, Hamaji, standing outside, couldn't see anything. To broaden Hamaji's horizons, Dusetsu took her hand and pulled her into the crowd, but he didn't realize that he was pushing too hard. Just as Hamaji was about to leave, she sensed something amiss. There was a beastly scent emanating from Itejiru, coupled with a peony mark on her leg. Alarmed, she quickly informed Dusetsu, who upon closer inspection noticed Itejiru's fangs, confirming that she was indeed a fuse. Dusetsu loudly alerted the surrounding crowd. Itejiru, no longer concealing her true nature, leaped up, shedding her heavy outer garments, preparing to flee the scene. Hamaji and Itejiru followed closely behind. But Itejiru ran like a hunting dog, leaving them in the dust. To capture her swiftly, they decided to split up and surround her. In no time, Dusetsu cornered Itejiru in an alley, brandishing his katana. However, each strike was effortlessly dodged by her. Itejiru leaps. She jumped to the top of the house. At that moment, Hamaji quickly locked onto Itejiru's position. She immediately leaped onto the eaves, adjusted the arquebus range, and aimed it at Itejiru's body. Itejiru was struck by her shot, dragging her injured body towards a large tree. Meanwhile, she kept muttering the name of a person named Shinbei. At this point, Hamaji soon found her along the blood trail. From the start, Itejiru had not harmed anyone, nor did she struggle or resist. For her, she had long known this would be her fate. Just a matter of time. She then handed a letter to Hamaji, asking her to deliver it to a person named Shinbei. This was her final wish. At that moment, Hamaji felt as if she had done something wrong. She agreed to Itejiru's request without hesitation. At the same time, Dusetsu arrived. Itejiru shed tears of despair. Amidst a roar, Dusetsu beheaded Itejiru. Her head had now transformed into a dog's head. Hamaji discreetly tucked the letter into her sleeve, while Dusetsu was overwhelmed with excitement, as he had finally become a true samurai. And so, they traded Itejiru's head for a hefty bounty. Lord Tokugawa rewarded them with a thick stack of gold. Finally, better days were ahead. Dusetsu promptly took Hamaji to a restaurant for a lavish meal. However, Hamaji, burdened with heavy thoughts, had no appetite at all. Perhaps she was pondering whether hunting down Fuse was the right thing to do. The next day, representatives from the theater invited Dusetsu and Hamaji to watch a play for free. Dusetsu agreed without hesitation. The play being performed at the theater was the story of Hakkenden. At first glance, Hamaji could tell that the protagonist was being portrayed by Shino. Legend has it that due to the kingdom's dire situation in war, the king proclaimed that whoever could bring back the enemy leader's head would marry his beloved daughter. However, fate played a huge joke, as the one who brought the enemy leader's head was a white dog. Yet the king's words could not be retracted, so he had no choice but to marry off the princess to the white dog. Unexpectedly, soon after, they gave birth to 8.5 human-dog hybrid children. From then on, trouble ensued. After the performance, Hamaji went to look for Shino, but unfortunately stumbled upon two thugs. Seeing Hamaji alone, they harbored ill intentions. In a critical moment, Shino appeared and swiftly extracted the essence of one thug, swallowing it whole. The other tried to flee, but it was too late as Shino's hand had already pierced into his body. After dealing with the two men, Shino, reluctant to face Hamaji, because Hamaji's essence had a deadly allure to the beast within him, he feared losing control of his animalistic side. Hamaji seemed to have already guessed his true identity, only mentioning wanting to deliver Itejiru's letter to Shinbei. However, Shino informed her that Shinbei had long passed away. It turned out Shinbei was Itejiru's child with a human, but due to business, Itejiru couldn't care for Shinbei, so she entrusted him to Shino's care. Unfortunately, Shinbei perished at the hands of humans. Hamaji and Shino could have developed a romantic relationship, but they didn't expect things to turn out this way. Shino left in sorrow. Hamaji also left tears of sadness. Clutching her arquebus, she cried all the way home, but as she walked, she lost her way. Dusetsu, seeing that Hamaji still hadn't returned home, enlisted the help of his neighbor to search for her. Lost, Hamaji crouched in a corner when Mito happened to pass by and rescued her. Mito was a young writer. She and Hamaji had previously met by chance on the street and become friends. Since no one would receive Itejiru's letter, Hamaji asked Mito to read it aloud. The letter was filled with Itejiru's deep maternal love for her son, Shinbei. On the other side, ever since Makawari had his eyes blinded by Shino, Shino's identity was exposed. In retaliation against Shino, Makawari conspired with the Lord's officials to set a trap in the theater where Shino was performing, waiting for Shino to fall into their scheme, but Shino had already seen through their plot. As soon as he arrived at the theater, the Lord's officials surrounded him, with Makawari emerging from below the stage. Unwavering, Shino faced the situation head-on. As Makawari launched his attack, Shino transformed his arm into a beastly limb, swiftly overpowering his adversaries. Shino was able to kill them all in no time. Seeing that Shino was indeed Fuse, his companions felt not fear but regret. Perhaps in their hearts, the alleged crimes of Fuse were mere fabrications. To swiftly end everything, Shino decided to infiltrate the inner city and eliminate the Lord Tokugawa, who had issued a bounty on Fuse. Shino captured Makawari as a hostage, but in the eyes of the chief guard, Makawari was deemed worthless. He ordered the artillerymen to attack at will. Feeling betrayed, Makawari revealed Tokugawa's location to Shino. Upon hearing this, Shino immediately set out to find Tokugawa. When Makawari showed up, he was shot at by the artillerymen as if he were the enemy. Filled with anger, Makawari decided to turn the place into a sea of flames before his imminent death. So, Makawari ignited the area with a torch. Meanwhile, Shino charged up the city wall. Hamaji appeared on the wall in the kimono that Shino had given her. She would not allow anyone to harm Shino, and immediately used her arquebus to attack the Lord's guards. Afterward, she went in search of Shino. On Shino's side, he fought his way to the rooftop where Tokugawa drew a precious sword from a painting. An enraged Shino also began to transform into a beast. The two were set for a fierce battle. In reality, Tokugawa was possessed by the former king. The former king considered his grandson a group of monsters, which was a great humiliation. He swore to kill them all. After several rounds, they were evenly matched. But Shino, using his beastly body, managed to grab the opponent's weapon, and then punched through the king's body. As the king vanished, Tokugawa regained himself. Shino did not eat his essence, because if he did, he'd be no different than a demon. He then looked out at the smoky city from the rooftop. Contemplating the human disgust towards him, he contemplated jumping off to end it all. At that moment, Hamaji appeared, using the end of her arquebus to hook Shino. She handed him the letter and told him Itejiru and Shinbei had never consumed human essence. Shino took the envelope. Seizing the opportunity, Hamaji pulled him back. She knew that Shino refrained from consuming Tokugawa's essence for her sake. With an explosion, Hamaji's hair fell loose, and in her gentle eyes, there was deep affection. She told Shino that if he felt immense pain, she would let him consume her essence. Shino embraced her tightly, and this warmth transformed him back into his human form. The two held each other tightly. The long-suppressed emotions caused Shino to let out a roar of anger. This roar seemed to move the heavens, and suddenly a heavy rain began to fall. The city, engulfed in flames, was thus saved. Later, to avoid further trouble, Shino left the place. Hamaji found Mito and asked her to teach her how to read, so that she could correspond with Shino. A year and a half later, Dusetsu also had his own child, and the city returned to its former tranquility. Hamaji often wandered the streets, with a red camellia flower in her hair. Meanwhile, Mito turned the events into a novel, but was unsure how to end it, so she sought out Hamaji, who gave her some good news. She had received a reply from Shino. The conclusion to this correspondence might just be the most beautiful ending since ancient times. In any kingdom, there have been many legends of humans and beasts, some deeply moving, some heart-wrenching, but no matter what, they all reflect humanity's yearning for the good and beautiful. Seeing the friends at the end of the video, you must have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.